Bullshit.
The No BS Marketing Show is brought to you by Laramore's men's and women's designer clothing, free shipping, free returns. Shop men's and women's designer clothing, shoes, accessories, jewelry, and more online at laramores.com or in-store downtown Pittsburgh. It's the No BS Marketing Show. I'm your host, Dave Mastovich. Our guest today is Marvin Carolina, and he's had all kinds of cool stories already to tell us. We'll recap episode 1 with Marvin and dive into episode 2. But first, let's hit the bullseye. You might have heard that Tesla has a Model S and a Model X. When asked what he would call his third model, Tesla CEO Elon Musk said, well, we have the S and the X, so let's go with E, sex. When Ford found out, they sued Tesla because Ford trademarked the Model E in October of 2003. Musk jokingly said, Ford is killing sex. Now that's a competitive messaging campaign, but Ford's Model E is actually tied to the company's electrified hybrid vehicles. Ford's behind Tesla on that front, but's hoping to change that. The company spends a great deal of time and money on marketing intel. Their research shows that people who buy Ford F-150 trucks want durability and reliability. Those same people rank fuel economy 28th on their list of priorities. So if you're thinking of taking the Ford F-150 and making it a hybrid or electrifying it, you're not going to really appeal to that target market. And that might make a marketer's head scratch when we hear that Ford's thinking about that. But Ford has a different idea with their messaging and positioning. First, the company knows they need to meet the new regulations of 54.5 miles per gallon on average by 2025. So adding as many hybrid vehicles as possible is necessary due to those regulatory changes, which is all part of your marketing intel, your competitive intel. You've got to understand your environment, the market, the regulatory, the economic changes coming down the pike. But they also learn from their marketing research of an unexpected benefit that their target audience will appreciate. Their marketing intel showed customers of the F-150 would buy generators and strap them down in their truck beds. Ford realized that access to power could become a major selling point for the new hybrid F-150s. That's why their messaging will focus on how the F-150's battery will not only feed the electric motor, but also function as your mobile generator. Bam! Now you're onto something that resonates with your target audience. Keep the beer cool at the tailgate party. Have power when camping. All with your new hybrid F-150. Ford CEO Jim Hackett calls it, quote, bungee cord solutions when he's interviewed. He says those are workarounds for tasks the traditional F-150 couldn't take care of, but the new electrified version will. The company's marketing intel showed an unforeseen marketing opportunity around the hybrid F-150 that enabled Ford and the hybrid F-150 to hit the bullseye. Our guest today is Marvin Carolina. And Marvin created the Minority Contractor Business Development Program in his career when he was at J.E. Dunn, a large construction company. He's helped small business owners across the country increase their sales by tens of millions of dollars back then. He also has his passion, Team Carolina, designed specifically for university students and faculty. It integrates learning theory and principles with the practical skills businesses emphasize and reward. Marvin told us in episode 1 a bunch of interesting stories. First, he grew up in Wilkinsburg, went to Shadyside. He talked about the impact that Shadyside had from the get-go. Before his freshman year in the summer, he was required to read, and a third of his grade in the first 6 weeks was based on the reading and the testing of that. He then got recruited. He was an all-around athlete. He was finished a basketball game on a Friday night, and Bill Curry, head coach at Georgia Tech, one of the top universities in the country, Division I strong football program. And yes, Bill Curry, the guy who's still on ESPN, who coached at Kentucky, played for the Baltimore Colts and won a Super Bowl when he was a player. Just an incredible speaker. Bill Curry comes to talk to him and recruits him. He goes to Georgia Tech. There, he says a number of things that he learned through sports even before Georgia Tech. Don't be late, be early. He gave an example of how his coach at Shadyside left for a major game with the quarterback not there because he was late. The bus took off. He talked about at Georgia Tech a couple of star players getting into some trouble, and they play a bowl game without them because Bill Curry stuck to the rules, and they won the bowl game. He talked about how sports helps you to be results-driven and resilient. Then he gave us the background of his time at Oscar Mayer in Portland, Oregon, and then San Diego and Los Angeles, all over the place, where he did sales, but also had to understand marketing and messaging. He talked about Oscar Mayer's campaign, My Bologna has a first name, Oscar. My Bologna has a second name, Mayer, and how significant that is. And we're putting that video on YouTube on both sets of show notes. Then he got into the cool part of how he got into business and talked about how he paid it forward and how important it is to be honest, to help others and treat people with respect. And he gave this great story of how he did that and how it paid him back. And so, Marvin, welcome to part 2.
Glad to be here. I'm enjoying myself.
So that story that you ended episode 1 with, I just have to recap in case someone pops into episode 2. You leave Oscar Mayer, a great company. You've had a great career, 5-6 years already on to big things. And you start a partnership with a man you said his name was Leon, I think. You were going to be sales for him, and it was kind of under your own guise of your business, and he was the owner of the company. You got and you sell, and you decide you wanted to do your own endeavor where you run into someone who was impressed with you and said, hey, would you like to be your own distributor and distribute this bottle of water? So instead of doing what a lot of people do, you come back to Leon and you say, here's everything that I've done. Here's how you can keep all this business. Here's the times I called on them. Here's what they bought. Bingo. It's all done for you. I'm moving on. So now you leave on great terms and you show Leon that you're a high character individual. You then go to start the other job and you're only selling water, and Leon comes back and helps you to land another client, another product.
It sounds like a big deal now, but I didn't even think of it that way. It just seemed like that's the agreement we had. I didn't think that I was doing anything great. It was just, that's the way we agreed. Here it is. Let me continue, move on and do my thing. But now you look back at it, it's like, wow, okay, maybe it was great, but I'm glad that it wasn't that big of a deal now. People even back then kind of said, Marvin, you could have taken this chunk of business and really launched. I really didn't think of it that way. And I'm glad that it happened the way it did, because I did my own thing and I did great. And
now talk about that. So now you leave Leon, the other guy shows you a way to get beyond just water. You start expanding. Talk about that. Then what happens?
I'm a sales guy, so I can sell. And so I'm selling like you would not believe. My margins are getting tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter like you wouldn't believe. But my background is sales and marketing, not finance. So a sales and marketing guy sells his way out of problems. Not really. So I just sold more. I'm going to give you a case. I want you to buy my orange juice. I tell you what, I'll give you a case and you buy a case. Well, who's paying for that case that I just gave you? I didn't do the math problems. And so I just sold it in. So now you're buying my orange juice from me. You're buying my cranberry from me. But I've given you a case, but I'm not always accounting for that. And my margins continue to get tighter because I have to be competitive because there's other people in the market. And I'm selling to people who won't go out and get their own. They could go to Sam, they can go to Costco, they can go to a variety of the big stores and buy their own. I deliver it at a competitive price. So I'm trying to prevent you from going out and getting your own. Whether it's a sandwich shop, whether it's a workout facility, wherever it was, gas stations, if you ever seen all of the cases of soda around a gas station, I would do that. And I just went through a bunch, but my margins got too tight. And then I just decided, I needed to give it up and go back to corporate America. I did it for 6-7 years, really enjoyed it, but it got tough.
Were you able to sell the business or did you just end it?
I just ended it.
Okay.
The guy still had the rights to it. So I just kind of turned things back into him, and I think he went on and found another distributor, but the margins was just too tight for me and I was hiring people to deliver for me. And so when you're doing that and trying to sell and trying to grow a business.
But you're still now early in your career. You're probably early 30s?
Early 30s.
And you go back to corporate America.
I went back with Sears.
Okay.
And Sears has a dealer store program. And it's independently owned and operated dealer stores, anywhere from 8,000 to 12,000 square feet stores located in rural areas. So the people who live an hour outside of a major city don't need to drive in. The old catalog stores, if people remember those.
The same people that remember the Oscar Mayer commercial.
Exactly. And it's all Heartlines. There's no clothes. There's no linen or anything like that. You have tools. You have lawn and garden, those type of things in the stores. And I did that. I did it in Kansas City. I moved to Kansas City with them. I was district manager for the state of Missouri, and I did it for 2 years there. And then I got promoted up to Chicago, where headquarters was. And while I was there, I decided to go back and get my master's. And my master's is in community development because I wanted to help people. That's where my heart was. But my skill set is in sales and marketing. So how do I use what I have in a way that helps other people?
So you got the master's while at Sears. They paid for it?
No, I paid for it out of my pocket.
And what school was it?
It was North Park University.
Okay.
And it's interesting. So I'm a corporate guy. So now I'm in a master's degree program, all nonprofit people in there. Everybody. And so we have differing opinions on a lot of different things. Very different opinions. And we were doing this one thing and they said, okay, we're going to do a survey of the neighborhood and we're going to take the data and then we're going to, apply something to the neighborhood. I'm a corporate guy. So who's doing the surveys or where are we going to get the data from? Where are we going to get the information from? We're going to do it. I don't understand. We're going to go knocking on doors. Knocking on whose door? We're going to go throughout. We're going to canvass the neighborhood. First of all, we had to develop a survey. And then we're going to knock on doors throughout the neighborhood and we're going to do our own survey. Corporate people don't do that. They give us the data. We kind of analyze it. And so when I said it in class, everyone's heads kind of goes, like, what is he thinking about? But you learn. That's community development. That's grassroots. You're going out knocking on the door. You're meeting the people. What are the problems that are going on in your community? And we went throughout the community, which is interesting. There was a parking problem. There was a commercial area that was close by. There was a drug house that was close by. And there was some gangs that were close by. And so now we have all of these three major problems. There's a drug house, there's gangs, and there's a parking issue. And there's one other thing that I can't remember right now. And so I'm thinking, corporate guy, let's hit the big thing. Let's hit the drug house. Let's see how we can do something to alleviate this drug house. No. You take care of the low-hanging fruit first because you got to get a win. Let's take care of the parking. Let's go to this commercial area. There's a hospital right there or a medical facility. Let's go to them because their employees were parking all throughout the neighborhood, so the neighborhood didn't have a place to park. I'm like, that's kind of easy. They said, exactly. Hit the low-hanging fruit, get momentum, and then you go throughout the community. Then they say, well, you hit a win for us. So now you have positive momentum. And it made sense. I finished my program. I took the job in Kansas City while I was in the middle of my program. I still had a year left, and my classes were on Saturday from 9 to 12 and from 1 to 4. When I moved to Kansas City for my next job opportunity, I would travel back on Saturdays.
How long of a drive was that?
No, I had to fly. And so I had about an hour, 15, 20-minute flight. I had a train ride, a bus ride to get to school. Now, I lived in Chicago for 3 years, and people say it's so cold. It wasn't that bad. I guess when you leave from a garage at home and go to a garage at work, it's not that bad. When you fly in and you have to wait on the L, that's when I learned how cold Chicago really was. I'm thinking, this is freezing. Was it this cold for the 3 years that I was here? It's a different perspective. It's a totally different perspective. But I finished up my degree in flying back, and I did that for about a year, maybe about a year and a half, every week. I'd catch a 6 o'clock flight.
That's a grind.
Yeah, it's a grind, but you get used to it.
So you get a 6 at night on Friday?
No, 6 in the morning, 6 a.m. So it's an hour and a half, get up there around 7 something. You catch the 2 trains and a bus, get to class, afterwards catch the flight back. I just kept doing that. And the flights, they weren't that expensive. I mean, they were maybe $80, $90 if you...
So you were still home Saturday night then?
Yes, still home Saturday night. And so I did that for about a year and a half until I graduated.
And you were single at that time?
No, I was married.
Kids?
Married with 2 kids. 2 small kids at the time.
Who's this saint that was with those 2 kids?
But if you stop, here's the thing. If you stop, you never go back.
Yeah.
Because I'm busy. I have a new job. Yeah. So I'm not going to go.
What was the new job? Was it still with Sears?
With J.E. Dunn Construction at that point.
Okay, so that's when you get to J.E. Dunn. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's where you had a lot of stuff happen. You advocated and pushed for a lot of positive change.
Yes. And I was director of diversity. So I worked with small businesses, women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, veteran-owned, veteran-disabled-owned businesses, and small businesses in general. And I created programs by which they could be successful in working with big companies such as J.E. Dunn. So how do you find these companies and how do you make sure that they're ready to go when you're working on $100, $200 million project? Because they work fast. Uh-huh. And small businesses, the biggest difference is they don't have the same resources. They don't have the same financial resources and they don't have the same human resources. So how do you create a program that makes them competitive in working on these projects? And that was my responsibility. And I did it there in Kansas City and I did it very well. And then it grew outside of that. J.E. Dunn has 21 offices across the country. We went to 12 of them and put this program in place. I didn't have a huge budget, so I had to do it myself. And so first place we went was Denver. And so I would fly to Denver and we taught the class once a month in each market all day. It was from 9 to 4. And then I traveled to the next market. And as I established them, you got to go in, you got to meet the community because you got to make sure that they understand what you're doing. You invite them in for orientation. Tell them, here's the program. Here's our goals and objectives. We're going to make the businesses better. If they want to get on these big projects, we need to make sure that they're properly prepared. Just like a football game, I want to make sure you're prepared before you go on the field so you don't get hurt. Same thing in business. I want to make sure you're prepared before you go into some of these opportunities and don't get hurt. And so we started in Denver, then we went to Houston. It was interesting because I went to Atlanta and I told them that I'm coming, and you meet a few of the leaders and you kind of say, I need you to kind of speak on my behalf. I'm coming here. I'm starting this program. And one of the guys who later became one of my mentors, Reggie Williams, he said, well, I don't know you. I don't know what you do. I said, well, we're getting ready. In a few weeks, we're getting ready to launch in Houston. Why don't you come to Houston so you can see what we're doing in my training program, my training style, and how I do things. So he flew over to Houston, and he was going to be there today. And so he came in the morning, and we launched it. And, I love presenting. I love teaching. I love helping and identifying with people. I don't come from a superior perspective. I'm right here. I talk to you eye to eye, face to face, not talking down at people. But we did it in the morning, and we went to a break right around lunchtime. And I said, well, what do you think so far? He said, I'll see you in Atlanta. He said, I saw all I need to see. He said, but the problem I have is I don't think you really understand what you have. He said, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been doing this 30 years. I don't really think that you understand. He says, your delivery, how genuine you are, how passionate you are. I see these programs pop up all over the country. The way that you run it, when you get to Atlanta, you'll have your audience. Everyone will be there. He said, but I really need you to understand what you have here and how you're delivering it. And I really learned from that. The thing that I've learned over time is people say the difference in your program and what you're doing is that you really care. You can tell you're sincere. I'll sit down with a contractor who has a pickup truck and a shovel and talk to them for an hour. Doesn't matter to me. At the time, I was a big time VP and all this. Doesn't matter. What do you want to talk about? Let me give you some best practices, how you can grow your business. I've sat down with people who are going out of business and struggling. Mr. Carolina, I don't know whether I'm going to be here. When you come back next month, I don't know whether I'm going to still be in business. But what's going on? How can I help? What kind of things can we do to help you continue to stay in business? But the sincerity is something that always gets spotlighted for me. They say, you're always sincere. You're passionate about what you do. You can tell that you care. It's not like you're just doing this for a job, that you really care about the people that you work with and that you genuinely give good advice. And you're hard. I'm not easy. I've been told that too, that I'm hard. I'm very direct. My intentions are really good.
The passionate story of Marvin Carolina. Hey, no BSers, I love Laramore's men's and women's designer clothing. It's time for you to take your look to the next level. Laramore's is the place to make it happen for you. How do I know? Because they've helped me for years. You talk about combining professionalism and style. That's what happens when you go with Laramore's. You can shop online at laramores.com or in-store in downtown Pittsburgh. We're with Marvin Carolina of Team Carolina, hearing this inspirational story of how he's gone through each stop along the way, learning tremendous things and continuing to be a person of character, paying it forward, treating people with respect. He's talked in this episode about Sears. Then he's talked about his master's in community development at North Park University and how he went back while working full time. Then he just talked about J.E. Dunn and how he was able to continually grow this messaging. And then that, it sounds to me like right at the perfect time for that little quick segue. Is this when you realized that you needed to do this as Team Carolina?
Yes. A couple of things happened, and I have great stories about, I'm training this one class, and it didn't seem like they were getting everything that I was giving them. I was giving them my best. I was giving them 10 things they needed to do. By the next time I come back here once a month, I'll be back next month. I want you to do these 10 things. I gave them homework. The homework, when I say homework, is how to get their business better. So it's not homework. I'm not talking about geography. I'm not talking about math. I'm talking about best practice on how to make your business better. Came back the next week and they hadn't gotten them done. And I'm livid. You guys have to do this. You got to get better. You got to move forward. These jobs are real challenging and I don't want you to lose money and I don't want you to go out of business. This is when I learned something. One of the guys raised his hand and said, Mr. Carolina, believe me, I appreciate everything that you have done. He said, everything that you went over last time when you were here, if I put in place, would benefit me. And I know that for a fact. I was only able to put 3 things in place. Those 3 things have changed the way I do business. I do not have the bandwidth to do everything that you gave me. I just don't have it. But I appreciate the 3 things that you did give me and that I was able to put in place. But for me, I have to understand these are business owners. Now, in my mind, I could have given them 20. I cut it down to 10. These are very busy individuals. There's a high demand on their time, on their energy, on their mind, everything. And I have to pull back a little bit, understand where they are. 3 things was great. After that, I learned, just do 3 things.
And what are the most common 3 things that you tell business people?
The biggest thing is understanding the difference between revenue and profit. My revenue is going up. My revenue is going up. Where is your profit? Profit's what you bring home. People are so focused on the revenue and don't realize it's the profit that will make or break your business. When I went out of business, my revenues was going through the ceiling. My profit was going through the basement. So you have to understand that. Another thing, especially from a small business perspective, not really utilizing your technology. Technology is designed to make things easier. Now, to front load it, it's going to take a little time to get adjusted to it. But in the long run, it really helps you, not really understanding technology and how it can help you. The third thing is having processes and procedures, consistent processes and procedures. Some people do something every day, and every day they do it a different way. What about getting a procedure? You're wasting time, energy, money, because every day you're thinking about it differently. Make that a procedure. So now it's just a regular, like assembly line. It's a regular thing. They don't do that. Smaller businesses do it differently. It's ineffective, it's inefficient, and all of those things. So those are the top 3 things: is understanding profits and revenues, understanding how to implement technology, whether it be a website. Everything's online now. What does your online look like? Your SEO? What do those things look like when people go to look at your business? Do you have a website? If you do not have a website that talks about your business, it talks about your business. Either you can use a website or you can have no website. I've had people sit in meetings with me and I'm introducing them to a contractor that I want them to do business with, and they're on an iPad. And I'm initially thinking, that's kind of rude. I mean, I brought you here. I'm introducing you to a contractor I want you to do business with, and they're typing on an iPad. Now, what did you say? Is this your company? And they turn their iPad around and they have their website pulled up. And then sometimes they can't find their website. And I'm sitting in the meeting. So those are the type of things that people want to find out information about your company. And the website is the easiest way to do that. So understanding.
So what
technology.
size companies do you typically work with?
It's going to vary, but I would say anywhere up to $10 to $15 million businesses. And I've worked with some bigger, but that's on the average, somewhere right around $10 to $15 million businesses, and smaller. Some mom and pop. Some probably a few $100,000 businesses. But the average is probably going to be right around $10 to $15 million that I work with. And to your point, that was when I said, can I do this on my own? Can I open it up? And I developed a training. A training was based on competition. How do you build to compete? I wrote 2 books recently. I just came out with my second book. My first book was called Across the Middle. And I did that in 2016. And then right behind that in 2017, I wrote a book called Build to Compete and Win. Are you building? Meaning, are you doing the things that on Saturday you can win? Are you doing the things that on Tuesday in your business you can win? It's hard to win and compete if you haven't built towards that.
So Across the Middle, what was that one? What's the gist of that? And we'll have that in the show notes too.
It's just small, quick snippets of entrepreneurial success habits. It's real short, real quick reading chapters that talks about, for an example, to get your rest. I talk about a chapter about, people say, oh, I worked all night. There's a point in the day where your efficiency switches and you're not being effective, you're not being efficient, you need to quit and go home. But we keep working. Everything that you do from that point on is not going to be that great. Now, you're thinking that it's great, but you're 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, you're losing efficiency. And then you're not going to get any rest. So now the next day you're going to get back up and you're not going to be efficient. So I have a chapter that talks about, don't work any nights or any weekends. And I did that in one of my classes. I said, if you're going to be a part of this class, I don't want you to work any nights or weekends. And the whole class is like, is this guy drunk? How are you not? You're not an entrepreneur, are you? How could you say that? Try it. Just try it. And that's something so simple. Once they did it, they said, I can't explain to you how I come back fresh. I was like, yeah, that's why I told you to do that. And I wrote a chapter about that. So there's a chapter about that. There's a chapter about getting help, getting a free consultant. When you're in business, you have a family member who is just waiting for you to ask them their opinion. And when you're in the industry, whether it's construction, manufacturing, staffing, or IT, whatever it is, you talk to people in that industry. So when you tell them something, Well, we just do it that way. We just do it that way. When you talk to somebody outside of your industry and they say, why do you do that? Well, we just do it that way. Why? Tell me why. I really don't know why. Well, maybe you shouldn't do it if you don't know why to do it. But when you talk to people, you talk to an innocent mind, they ask questions that are different. And you get a totally different opinion because they don't take things for granted because they're not in the industry. So there's a lot of things that they ask that you have to answer now. Either you stop doing or you adjust doing based on them asking questions of you. So it's quick hitters because entrepreneurs, business owners don't have a lot of time. So there's short chapters and it's just tips of how you can, build your business and things that you should consider. Do you pay yourself as an entrepreneur? Well, everyone else gets paid. I don't get a paycheck. Okay, there's a lot of benefits to getting a paycheck. There's retirement, there's a bunch of things that you have to do, filings and those type of things. You have to make sure you pay the owner and you pay yourself. So talk about things like that. So both books are pretty similar in the sense that quick hitters, like I said, you don't have to sit there and read all night. You can read 2 or 3 chapters pretty quickly, but they give you something that directly is related to your business that you can implement very quickly.
So we can have people possibly buy one or both of those books. Also give our audience a tool you use to help you become more productive or to help you communicate better, something that our audience could take away. It could be an app, it could be a blog you check regularly, it could be some sort of tactic you use that's a tool. So any kind of tool you think that can help our listeners become more productive or to communicate better.
One thing, I try to find something to work on every week, and it's a tool. What do you work on to get better? Do you have a list? Create a list of things that you need to get better at. For 1 week, you need to pick one of them and you need to practice that, getting better at that one thing. One of mine was computers. I need to get better at computers. I need to learn, how to work computers better. Now, I can function on a computer like anybody else, but how do I take that to the next level? So every day I set aside specific time to work on the computer. Another time, still technology, was on my phone. I don't know what the numbers are. You start out when we talk about, texting, of what percentage of the phone do we actually use? Of all the apps, of all the things that we can use,
Tiny.
It is a small percentage, but you carry it around all the time. Text, phone, email, maybe a couple other things. You can manage your time. There's an app that manages your time. So learning more about the phone was another thing. But I did it for a week. And I set aside specific time that I'm going to dedicate to learning more about the phone, to learning more about computers. And I continue to do that. I select a topic that I think I need to get better at. One of the things was writing. And that turned into a weekly article in the Kansas City Star. And I started writing weekly articles and then turned into the 2 books. But I was needed to improve my writing skills. And so you start writing, it's like, well, wait a minute. I can turn this into something. And like I said, I turned it into a weekly business article in the Kansas City Star and then on to the book. So you need to understand where your weak spots are, where your blind spots are, and work on them. Most times we try to ignore them and try to keep playing to our strengths. And we don't play to our weaknesses, but we need to understand our weaknesses first. And the second thing, we need to work to improve them.
Marvin, was there anything you thought I'd ask you that I didn't?
Wow.
Or is there anything else you want to bring up before we close?
No, I want to say that I definitely enjoyed it. My biggest theme is learning how to compete. We compete every day, and recognizing that you are in a competition every day is very important. We are playing musical chairs and somebody's going to get left without a chair. And yet I don't want it to be you. So I need people to understand competition. And one of the first things that I always say when I talk about competition is you have to understand the rules. You have to understand the rules of activities that you're participating in. It doesn't matter what it is, but you need to understand the rules. I coached my youngest son's basketball team this spring. The very first thing I did, I invited a group of referees in and I said, teach them the rules. Now, I played basketball since I was small, but listening to the rules, now, I mean, some of them may have changed, but I didn't know half of them. And I'm coaching, so I need to know these, but you need to understand the rules of business, difference between revenue and profit. We need to understand the rules of the activities. Whatever that activity is, we need to understand the rules. We watch sports all the time, and that's why they have penalties. Did you not know that? Did you not know that grabbing a person and throwing them down is not holding? So there's a lot of different rules that you have to understand. And understanding the rules helps you move forward and helps you be more productive and more successful. Because once you understand the rules, you can play within the lines and you can be more successful. Then you keep bumping into something and breaking the rules, and it slows down your progress. So understanding that you're competing every day and then understanding the rules of that activity that you're competing in.
Thank you, Marvin Carolina.
All right. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this. It's really a good time.
To our listeners, thanks for joining us for the No BS Marketing Show, brought to you by Laramore's men's and women's designer clothing. Free shipping, free returns. Shop men's and women's designer clothing, shoes, accessories, jewelry, and more online at laramores.com or in-store downtown Pittsburgh. Visit masssolutions.biz for show notes plus additional marketing and messaging resources. Sign up for the No BS Marketing Weekly Update. You'll receive timely, valuable ideas to improve your marketing and transform your message. To sign up, visit masssolutions.biz. Remember, ask yourself, what's the big idea, and build your story around the answer. It's all about bold solutions, no BS. Thanks for joining us for the No BS Marketing Show, brought to you by Laramore's men's and women's designer clothing. Free shipping, free returns. Shop men's and women's designer clothing, shoes, accessories, jewelry, and more online at laramores.com or in-store downtown Pittsburgh. Visit masssolutions.biz for show notes, plus additional marketing and messaging resources like our No BS Marketing Weekly Update. Sign up and receive timely, valuable ideas to improve your marketing and transform your message. Again, visit masssolutions.biz. Remember, ask yourself, what's the big idea? And build your story around the answer. It's all about bold solutions